Well, for more on this bubbly topic, we're joined by Stephen Beaumont. He's co-author of the World Atlas of Beer and author of the Beer and Food Companion. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, Stephen, set the stage for us. What's happening in terms of beer consumption in China and globally?
Well, globally, as in China, beer consumption has been dropping over the last few years. Globally, more dramatically, China has been on a surge for the last decade to 2 decades, but over the last couple of years, it's leveled off, and last year it dropped a little bit. So globally, people are drinking different beers, better beers. They're not going so much towards the same beer all the time. In China, it's just really kind of a moderating of beer consumption.
Now, in terms of the large volumes of beer that are still being consumed, in China, why are we not seeing that translate into large profit margins?
Well, the profit margin on the sale of a bottle of beer in China is extraordinarily low. It's actually one of the lowest profit margins in the world. And so that's why you have a brand like Snow, which is the world's largest selling brand of beer, but not translating into huge amounts of profits for China Resources.
And as you mentioned this big deal with Snow, in terms of Chinese brands and foreign brands, how do you think this mega merger is really going to change the industry?
Well, I think that, when Snow comes back to China Resources, it's going to allow China Resources to be more open with their brands. They'll be able to do more things on their own. Lately, they've been premiumizing the brand a bit, so going for higher value sales, even as their volumes might decrease a little bit. On the global stage, I think that the Anheuser-Busch InBev SAB Miller merger will open up a lot of brands to international possession. So I see a lot of Asian, not necessarily Chinese, but perhaps Chinese, certainly Japanese, possibly Korean, breweries coming in and buying international brands to make the global beer marketplace just broader.
And you did mention premium beer. In terms of that, what sort of trends are you seeing in terms of demand?
Well, globally, people are trying to drink different things. It's the same as globally people are interested in eating different things. You talked about the lamb skewers in South Korea. People want to try new tastes and new varieties of beverages and foods. So the whole craft beer thing in Western Europe, in North America, it's now spreading through Asia. It's very strong in South Korea, in Singapore, and in Japan. So really, there's a big movement towards tasting different flavors in beer.
And in terms of introducing some of the Chinese brands beyond China, what about the possibility of Tsingtao Beer, which we were listening to earlier, becoming a popular brand in Europe and the US?
Well, here's where you get into a very crowded marketplace. Tsingtao is far away the biggest selling exported brand from China. It's almost the only Chinese brand with international recognition outside of Asia. And when you look at North America, you look at Europe, the marketplaces are so crowded, the brand needs to have something to stand out, to really commend it. And Tsingtao, I don't think really has that in place right now, which is not to say that they could not come up with something that would be a hook for them in the future, but right now I just don't see the brand as having a real hook for the Western marketplace.
And in terms of getting that edge in such a crowded market, what are some of the things that China could perhaps use to its advantage to maybe get a more competitive edge?
Well, one of the interesting things that's happening right now is we're going through a bit of a global hops crisis. Hops are the herb that adds bitterness to beer. And with so many breweries producing hoppier and hoppier beers around the world, hops are now becoming more and more scarce. When I was over in Beijing last fall, I ran into a couple of small breweries now experimenting with Chinese traditional herbs to provide that bitterness in their beers in place of hops. If a larger brewery got a hold of that idea and was able to translate it into their brands, it could be something very significant.
And just quickly, Stephen, as we're looking at some of the people who might be new to the beer market, who want to get in, what are some of the trends that they should be aware of? We're seeing a lot of low-calorie beers. What could they be looking for to really get a way in?
Well, I think the way into beer right now, because there is an unprecedented diversity in beer flavors now, the way in is to find something that defines beer for you as a drinker. I constantly run against people who say, I'm not a beer drinker. And I say, well, what do you drink? And if they tell me the mainstream brands, I say, well, try this. This is a fruity beer. Or try this. This is a light wheat beer. There really is a taste for everyone, and it's just a matter of finding that right taste.
Well, as a non-beer drinker myself, I perhaps could be converted. Thank you so much. We'll have to leave it there. Stephen Beaumont,